Welcome to The Chat. Come behind the inbound scenes of some of the world's fastest growing companies. For the past 10 years as Chatmetrics, we've had an exclusive inside view of how these industry leaders are revolutionising inbound marketing and sales across diverse sectors. Each week, we bring you conversations with top minds in marketing and sales who share insider secrets and strategies for driving inbound success. Join us on The Chat, your front row seat to the future of inbound. Today on The Chat, we're joined by Peter Strohkorb, an internationally recognised sales acceleration expert, author of the OneTEAM Method and Smarketing, and a champion of buyer focus in modern selling. With over 25 years of experience at global giants like Canon and 3M, Peter now helps B2B service businesses ditch outdated sales tactics and embrace modern, buyer-centric strategies. He's been named a Salesforce Blazer Top Influencer and is on a mission to help companies sell smarter, not harder. If you want practical, game-changing insights on how to boost sales revenue and engage buyers more effectively, this episode is for you. Thanks, Peter. Welcome to The Chat.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me on the show. Glad to be here.
Your work consistently emphasises sales and marketing collaboration. What's the single biggest mistake companies make when trying to align these two teams, and how can they fix it? And a quick follow-up question, which I'm sure you'll cover, why is that important?
Yeah, okay. So let's start with the last question first. It's pretty obvious that if you have a sales function and you have a marketing function that you want them to work together because, let's face it, that marketing is what attracts sales into an organization and we want to get the best from both functions. Unfortunately, once organizations get to a certain size, they tend to put marketing and sales into separate silos. And that then stops the immediate communication between the two functions and you get that disconnect that we've been talking about now for more than 20 years. And no amount of AI or automation or tech has actually solved this problem because it's actually a human problem. And when we create those silos, we give them a leader for each silo. And the leaders might talk to each other, but it stops the communication between the silos. Equally, in small business, what happens, a lot of business owners confuse sales and marketing. They think they're one and the same thing, which actually, if you think about it, it should be just two ends of the same banana. But unfortunately, they don't understand the role that marketing plays and the role that sales plays and how they should interact. Yes, I've been a champion for quite a few years now and written 2 books about it, as you mentioned, about bringing sales and marketing together and making the whole organization focus on the customer, not on what we're selling.
And it's not done on purpose, is it? It's almost, it happens for a whole host of reasons, but it happens, I've seen most often, quite innocently with best intentions to try and deliver the best business outcomes.
Yeah, that's right. So the problem is that I think the problem starts off when we try to give them KPIs and the KPIs are not aligned. So the KPI for marketing might be the number of leads. And marketing very reluctantly wants to be gold against revenue because they go, that's sales' job, that's out of our control. We don't want to be held to account for that part of it. But then what happens on the sales side is the salespeople, and I've heard people say that verbatim to me, the salespeople often say, we only want leads where the customer's ready to buy now. And so then the finger pointing starts where sales goes, well, leads we're getting from marketing are not really ready. And marketing goes, we'll give them all the leads and they're just too lazy to follow up. And you get that usual conflict. Unfortunately, unusual conflict.
It's interesting, isn't it? For me, it's always been this transition over the years of sales used to be the only way of selling, the only way of getting your product to a market. It was, if you think way back, it was going and knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, will you buy this from me, effectively, the old door knocking method. The way that it's progressed now is that we understand that some of those doors we knock in aren't going to be ready now. And so the salesperson's job was to do much more of that nurturing and manage the relationship ongoing. And that as a function in itself can be quite difficult, and depending on the length of the sales cycle, not a skill set that everybody can have. And I think in my mind, that's why you see this original breakaway of sales and bringing in marketing, the advertising side of things,
What happened was that somebody decided that salespeople are too well paid and expensive to do lead gen. And they said either let's outsource it to somebody, let's automate it through a tech stack, or give it to marketing to do, right? Or any combination of these three above. And this is where the problem starts, because then sales doesn't feel responsible for the lead gen anymore. And let's face it, things have changed since the 1980s, when people used to actually pick up their phone and talk to you, right? And I know plenty of outbound call center managers who tell me that they used to have 3 minutes to convince somebody that they're actually interesting to listen to. That's then gone down to 1 minute and 20 seconds, and now they're telling me it's less than 10 seconds. Yep. If you can't capture their imagination, capture their interest within 8 seconds, you've lost them. And the other problem is that, of course, nobody answers their phone anymore to numbers they don't recognize, because we can now see the numbers that are calling. And nobody responds to voicemails, and everybody hates being texted out of the blue, because that feels like I'm being ambushed and harassed. Yep. Equally, outbound email goes straight into the spam folder. And I was in a roundtable yesterday where we talked about that how 3% open rate is actually a great number.
Yeah.
Whereas 97% just either don't read it or just dismiss it, right? So that's not really efficient. Which then leaves us with social media, and we all know what pitch slapping is, right? That's where somebody connects with you on, say, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, and the first thing they do after you accept the invite, they go, buy my stuff. And that doesn't work either anymore. So I feel very sorry for anybody that has to generate leads in any sort of numbers, because it's a lot of work for not a lot of return at the moment. And I think my clients how to do that effectively.
It's really interesting from our perspective with the changes that are coming, particularly around AI searches. We sit in clients' websites for their inbound traffic. And at this stage, we haven't seen any major impact anywhere with regards to the traffic decline that's been cited that's going to be coming with these AI searches. And I know that not all of our clients have optimized for AI searches. So I'm wondering whether it's not here yet, it's not happening yet, or whether the AI searches are still so reliant on the Google search itself, the search engine, that it's filtering virtually the same things that it's surfacing the same thing that Google's surfacing to the top. But it's something that I know it's on everybody's mind at the moment, that lead gen component, whether it's from a marketing perspective, cold outbound or cold outbound. It's definitely getting harder and harder. It's certainly much more expensive. Marketing is much more expensive than it's ever been. The cost to advertise, even the cost of decent SEO, there's plenty of cheap AI-driven SEO. I haven't seen that drive too many results at this point in time.
And we've had the buyer's journey for a long time, where we talk about how the buyer decides when they're ready, and when they're ready, who they want to talk to. And the lead or the inquiry all of a sudden comes out of the blue to a sales rep who has not spoken to this person before, but they are super informed about what they want to buy because they've done their homework before they contact the salespeople. So there's all sorts of statistics going around saying up to 2/3 of the sales decision making is already completed before buyers contact a sales rep. But then that's not enough to just wait for people to come and talk to me. Organizations need to go and be proactive, reaching out as well and solicit that inbound traffic. And somebody in the roundtable yesterday mentioned that they expected AI to do all that. So they said there must be a function out there where AI researches my ideal prospects, finds out the ones that have budget and are ready to buy now, and only give me those leads. And I said, what app is that? What app does that? And he said, no, that's my dream.
Utopia.
Yeah, that's right.
Crazy. It's one of those things that I've seen some tools that will look for intent signals, engage on LinkedIn. I haven't seen any really that I'd look at and go, oh yeah, I can see that's something that I would feel comfortable in running my LinkedIn messaging, for instance.
I want to mention something that's super important in this context. And that is, everybody says about finding the right people to outreach to. And that's a challenge in its own right, as we just discussed.
Yep.
But very few actually know what to say that effectively engages them when you do catch someone, when they do answer the phone, when they do reply to their email, when they do respond to your LinkedIn outreach, right? And a lot of organizations make the mistake, and this is where buyer-focused selling comes into it. A lot of organizations make the mistake of talking about what they're selling, right? So we're selling CRM, we're selling IT services, we're selling, and they expect the buyer right there in that moment when they only got 8 seconds to make the mental arithmetics to translate for themselves what it means to me, what you're selling, right? What's in it for me from what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
So I teach my clients to just save them that effort and just talk about what you're selling from the buyer's perspective. This is what you're getting. And then you can go into storytelling and talk about a case study where it's a customer that was similar to your buyer or to your prospect made a decision and how they made the decision and what came out of it. I also teach my clients effective storytelling in sales because we're hardwired from when we were sitting around the campfire wearing loincloths and living in caves to convey stories, to convey information as stories. And that's why it's in our DNA, and we still respond better to stories than to facts and figures today.
I assimilate with the fire gazing at the end of the day and grunting so more than the conversation. Look, it's so true. The storytelling side of things. Do you think that's where the biggest mistake is, that they talked about themselves too much rather than what they offer? That's the single biggest mistake.
Well, the Americans very unkindly call it showing up and throwing up.
Yeah.
And so that nobody wants to be pitched at, nobody wants to be sold to. Everybody wants to be advised not to make a mistake. Everybody wants to be helped to make the right decision. Everybody wants to be helped to avoid a risk. And who do they want that help? Somebody who they perceive as a bit of an expert in their particular field. Yep. So again, my clients learn how to present themselves as that expert with something to say that's relevant to the buyer and to hook them at the first point of contact into a business conversation, not a sales pitch.
Yeah, yeah. I've always found that having a level of curiosity and picturing yourself as solving a problem for the client as opposed to trying to sell your product delivers far more value for both parties, even if it means that we're not a viable option. If I'm able to help and introduce them to a solution, whether that's a person, a company or otherwise, then that's a value give that at some point in time, karma, whether it's with them or someone else or referral, I think that's the better approach to take than the pitch slap and show up and throw up.
Yeah, look, a big thing that comes into it is trust, building trust, right? And we all know that trust is earned over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can be lost in a heartbeat. I wrote an article earlier in the year about the 3 stages of building trust with buyers. And if you like, I'm happy to enumerate those 3.
Yeah, please
so
do.
The total is that you need to build rapport. So you need to engage with somebody, and they actually need to find you interesting. Then the second one, once you build rapport, then you can earn their respect. And when I say respect about your knowledge, your insights, your expertise, as we discussed just then, right? And then once you give them good advice, even if it's against your own interests, as you mentioned, right? Even if you find that our product or service does not suit them right now for this purpose, you'd be better off saying that and earning their respect and then ultimately their trust by doing the right thing by them, so that the next time they remember that and they'll come back, and then you win the second deal, even if you lose the first deal. Whereas if you sell them the wrong thing and they find out afterwards, you're probably never going to get another sale. So you win the battle, but you lose the war.
Yeah, I agree 100%, 100%. I find that often the rapport building component at the beginning, depending on how you're engaging with people, and sometimes if it's posting content, for instance, you don't get the opportunity to build that rapport. The trust piece comes a little bit, the credibility piece comes a little bit sooner because you're sharing insights and sharing knowledge. And sometimes the rapport is almost serendipity in terms of you're finding some common interests after that initial engagement or initial discussion with regards to the insights you've been sharing. So sometimes I find those first 2 can flip around depending on the agreement. Yeah. And I find that serendipitous rapport tends to be a lot deeper and a lot more sincere than the attempted rapport at the beginning as well. It depends on each person's personality. I find it a lot easier to talk and share insights and try and solve problems before getting to know which footy team you like and all the rest of it. And it's almost like you scratching in the sand, establishing your credibility, whether it's actually worth having a further conversation or not, and then get to know each other a little bit better after that. It's a bit reversed. It's a little bit more, I find, of the US, the way that it's done in the US. Get on to business and then let's have a chat about who we are after that if we find out it works. So
actually, there's a couple of illustrations about how different cultures in different countries conduct sales. And I'll be happy to send you the image later. And it's quite interesting because for the Australians, it's a bit of small talk first, and then we talk about the footy, the family, and the weekend and stuff, and then eventually we get around to business. Whereas for the Americans, apparently, it's like go in hard. Then it literally says a fight ensues. And then they said resolution and purchase.
yeah.
So if we think that all people buy the same way and in the same steps and sequence, it's not the case.
No, that's right. And look, I'd love to have that. If you send that diagram through, I'll put it in the summary of on the podcast when we publish it. Right.
And just Terry, while we're talking about building rapport, there's actually one of my clients that has a tool called Salesably Prep 5, and I'll send you a link to that as well, which is basically replicating. So you and I are old enough to remember visiting customers in person.
Absolutely.
As a salesperson. And when did you do your preparation for the meeting? When did you do it?
When? Yeah. Generally the day before, the evening before, or the morning of.
All right. So most reps used to do it in the customer's car park while they're waiting to go inside. And so I'm
a little bit more OCD than that.
And so you got 5 minutes to prepare yourself. And so that's why this app is called Prep 5, because it gives you 5 minutes to prepare for a call or a first meeting or a contact. Oh, and it's AI driven. So it gives you all public domain information about that person that you're meeting so that you can build a bit of rapport and have a bit of a banter with them to get to know them better and to engage with them better. So I'll send you a link to that as well.
That'd be great. I'd love to see that. We'll include it for sure. I have to say one thing about dealing with the US, and that's where the majority of our customer base is and where most of my dealings have been over the last 8 or 9 years now. I don't know so much about the fight component. Definitely get on with business. And then it's really if there's value in a conversation beyond that, we get to know each other a little bit better. But I find that in terms of personality types, it actually suits my personality type a lot better as well. I find it a lot easier to actually do business in the US where we're having those business upfront conversations and then get to know each other, as opposed to here in Australia, which it's exactly as you say. A little bit different in cold calling. You don't necessarily get the opportunity to build rapport at the beginning of cold calling. It's much more down to, I think you've got to be asking that poignant, very relevant and thought-provoking question as in that first 8 seconds. Otherwise, you don't get on with it. But yeah, from a US perspective, there is a big difference. Maybe not as extreme as you've outlined, but it's a different order.
Also, the difference between East Coast and West Coast. I find that the East Coast people are just going bang. Whereas if you do that with the West Coast people, they feel a bit offended. So I've made the mistake of hurrying some West Coast people along in a seminar, and they wanted to chat, and I thought, no, if I chat, that I won't give them value. So I said, let's come back to the business, and they said that was very unfriendly of me.
It's hard.
I learned the hard way.
We're all human beings and have different experiences and behaviours that we've grown up with and just mould us differently. And I think just being aware of that there is a difference and trying to judge your audience, I think that's key critical, is just to be aware of it and judge the audience and try and... It's the old... I think the most successful salespeople I've known would have a bit of chameleon in them. In the terms of, you talk about mirroring, and not specifically mirroring, but it's more about making sure that you're speaking the same language and in tune with the person you're talking to. Is the thing. Yeah. Your book, Smarketing, talks about selling smarter, not harder. What's the most effective strategy today for boosting sales without simply...
I brought a little prop.
Oh, very good, very good. We'll just hold it up a bit closer to the camera there, and we'll make a snippet. Okay, very good. Thank you. Got it.
All right. So, what was the question? Sorry.
It was about that book, Smarketing. What's the most effective strategy today for boosting sales without simply working more?
Okay, so this is the whole philosophy that I teach my clients, and that is what you're selling is not as important as what your buyers perceiving they're buying. So, for example, yesterday in the roundtable, we were talking about selling UPSs, uninterruptible power supplies, for hospitals and schools and industrial purposes. And yes, you can talk about the UPS itself and how many kilowatts it is and how long the battery lasts and all that sort of thing. But really, what the hospital wants to know is, will it keep my patient alive if the power goes down during an operation, during surgery, right? Will it be reliable in the sense that we haven't used the thing for 5 years? Will it actually kick in when it's needed?
Yep.
And so then you can say, let's test the battery and let's do all that sort of thing to make sure that the outcome is right for you,
Yep.
not that the tech works.
Yep.
And so we were talking about that nobody really wants to know how all the tech works, like all the ones and zeros and all the cogs merging together, right? But they want to know, will it stop from something bad from happening? Will it avoid a risk that I'm taking? And in sales, by the way, we don't talk enough about avoiding risk. We all talk about the benefits, but we don't talk about managing risk and how we can mitigate risk with a solution or a service or a product.
And I think one thing that is greatly overlooked is identifying the risk of the status quo.
That's right. Yeah. And the cost.
The cost. Yeah.
Right.
A classic example with that battery, you gave the example in the hospital. In industrial businesses, is this going to help me make sure that I continue my production so that I can meet my output requirements and not have liquidated damages, for instance? It's much deeper. It's there to bring it back to the simple analogy. It's nobody's interested in the drill. They all want to know. They're buying a hole.
No, they're not buying a hole. They're buying a picture on the wall.
True. Very true. Yeah.
But to come back to the risk, we know that people buy with the logic, with the head, and that's where the business case comes in, all the ROI and all those rational things. But we also know that we buy with our heart. And when you have decision makers making a decision in terms of whether they're going to go with you or with somebody else or somebody else's product, they will not just look at the business case. And they will not just look at the ROI. They will also look at, will this make me look good? Or is there a chance that this can go pear-shaped and I'll be in trouble?
Yep.
So there's very much a personal element to every purchase decision. And as sellers, we don't buy into that enough. So I teach my clients to look at the personal benefit and the personal reason that they should buy, as well as the rational reason they should buy.
And so how much of an impact do you think that has in selling more?
Sorry?
So how much of an impact do you think, so boosting sales without simply working more, how much of an impact do you think it actually has on boosting sales?
Okay, it certainly will help you to streamline your effort. Because one of my philosophies that, again, I teach my clients is to look for fewer but better opportunities.
Yeah.
So we've all heard about spray and pray. You know, that was so very prevalent in the last decade when automation came really into its fore and we could just spray everybody. 10,000 emails could go out or 100,000 emails could go out. But actually, I think that's ruined the sales game for everybody because nobody listens to those things anymore. Right? So we've sensitized people to that outreach. But if you focus on fewer opportunities, bigger opportunities, and do a better job engaging with them, you probably will spend less time and effort and money, but you get more sales. So your selling becomes a lot more efficient if you know how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the better quality. We see that all the time when we first engage with an organization. Their sales team will be overburdened with trying to get back in touch with form fills and having meetings where there's people not turning up to meetings because when the SDR's done the qualification, they skipped over one or two particular questions because they're getting paid based on the meetings or getting a bonus for the number of meetings that they book. And when we come in and effectively take over the whole form fill process, you see the number of leads drop dramatically. The SDR function, inbound SDR function, almost disappears. And the meetings that are booked now are with sales qualified, fully qualified. Yeah. And so this impact of less leads but higher qualified leads ends up with more pipeline and more revenue outcomes.
Yeah, more quality, less quantity. Totally. Yeah.
And the really shocking thing is that often the sales cycle is shortened. Now, live chat software providers will tell you that live chat deals will close quicker, and they'll say it's because there was a chat, etc. I think it's actually much broader than that. I think that because when it's done properly, the level of qualification means that there's less activity in the pipeline, but it's higher quality activity, which means the salesperson can be much more focused on doing the right things or following all the right steps in the sales process to actually get a deal closed, as opposed to, and we'll pay more attention to it knowing that it's more likely to close, as opposed to having all of this stuff just flowing through into their pipeline that's not qualified properly. So I think that it's a two-sided thing. Yes, they're getting better deals, but it's the fact that they're actually executing better is what's closing it quicker.
So do a better job on fewer leads and fewer opportunities. But not only does it help the salesperson, but it also improves the buyer's experience, the buyer's buying experience, right? Absolutely. Because you do a better job looking after them and really interacting with them, as opposed to racing from one opportunity to the next. And the other thing that will happen for your sales leaders is that their forecast will become a bit more reliable and less of a lottery. And you have fewer rubbish opportunities that are just dragged on from 1 month to the next, but will never close in your CRM.
And there's the two outlying, I guess, KPIs that are impacted the greatest is return on ad spend, because once you can refine it down to those deals that are coming into the pipeline and are qualifying nicely, you go back and look at where the source of those deals are coming from. And so you're able to adjust your ad spend accordingly. The fact that you're converting more will just simply improve your return on ad spend anyway. And at the other end, your client acquisition cost drops dramatically. Less effort through the process means less costs associated with it. And all of a sudden you've got those single two KPIs, particularly for businesses that are heavily inbound marketing focused. The impact on the EBITDA line is multiples of 10 when you can impact both of those to that level.
And I've mentioned that the buyer will get a better buying experience. But also, let's not forget the poor salesperson who will actually be less stressed because they got fewer balls in the air.
Absolutely. It's a win-win. It's really one of those things that this FOMO of businesses when they're starting and when they go through a rough time and they try and get everybody into more activity, more of the same will get us better results. It's a bit like the definition of insanity. Really trying to do more and expect that you're going to get more of the same and expect to get different results. It just really doesn't happen. And in fact, it can decrease results. So conversely, the things you're talking about and that we're talking about that improve outcomes, if you push the other way, you don't do them and you push more of the same, it'll actually deteriorate outcomes when you're trying to do something differently. It's a struggle, and it's not easy to overcome when the leadership team is under a lot of pressure to perform and market conditions might be changing, that's really tightening up the budget and their purse strings.
So this is a very common thing that you're mentioning there, Terry, and that is that all sales leaders live in a very short-term world. 1 month to the next, 1 quarter to the next. So they feel they don't want to risk changing anything because it might worsen the results and make them look bad. And so we're stuck in this thing where we try to do more of the same things that we know aren't working instead of changing the tires on the car while it's moving. And it is possible to do that. You just got to know how to do it.
You do. And look, it's often not their fault. They'll be pressured in such an environment. They've only got so much experience themselves and knowledge. There's several reasons why people don't reach out for help, but reaching out for help is what can make the big difference. The reaching out for help and getting a different perspective, getting a different process, getting a different idea on how to do things, learning some new skills or gaining some new frameworks to be able to share with the team. I think anyone that's in that super pressured environment that are finding that they're up against a brick wall and they feel like it doesn't matter what they're doing is not really making a difference, they should be reaching out to somebody like yourself, Peter, even in terms of getting some advice on what are the next steps, how can I make a change. We get so bogged down in the trees, it's almost impossible to see the forest. I had this conversation yesterday with a marketer who made a few comments about our business, and I was like, I've never even considered that. And we're very focused on growing our business at the moment, so I'm stuck in the forest doing a lot of the doing. And two ideas that just really blew my mind that I hadn't even considered because they were very different to what we're doing now. Not sales related, it was marketing related, but it's the same perspective. When you're under a lot of pressure, it's hard to take a step back and take a breath and think more removed from the situation at more of an executive and strategic level. You get forced into the tactical day-to-day.
You get tunnel vision because the pressure is on to deliver on the sales target, what the Americans call quota. And so you just get hyper focused on that, and you actually drop the ball on a whole bunch of peripheral things instead of looking at the bigger picture. And this is why I'm saying that it's hard to change the tires on the car while it's moving, but it is possible, and you can do it incrementally, and there's a structured process.
Absolutely. That what you just mentioned about the sales environment being such short term, you're as good as your last month's results. And at the end of every month and at the end of every quarter, everything just starts again from scratch. You've got a fresh slate, and not necessarily a fresh slate. You're left over with what you've got to work with. And if you don't have a strong pipeline coming through with good qualified leads, the pressure every single month when that revenue number drops and you're heading into a new quota, a new sales target, look, we've been there, Peter. You know what it's like. Yeah, it can be a pretty stressful environment to be operating from if you don't have that pipeline coming through.
Well, we mentioned a lot in sales. You mentioned a lot going from hero to zero every month. Because every month you start off with zero revenue again. And you may have smashed your sales target last month, but you still go back to zero the next month.
Interestingly, one of the businesses that I've managed in a prior career, one of the challenges they had early on in their systems and processes was that the managers would hold back invoicing.
Yeah, sandbagging.
That's right. Sandbag it. They would hit target 5, 6, 7 days out from the end of the month. Yeah. And so they would just dribble enough through invoicing towards the end of the month to let everybody look like everything looked okay and hold a couple of really big invoices back so that they've got a good kickstart to next month. And that's not really good for anybody either. It might take a little bit of pressure off the salesperson or that particular manager that's doing it. But it's not good because all it does is hide the bigger issues that need to be resolved. So
there are a lot of examples of where KPIs create unintended consequences. I'm reminded of when Telstra first moved their call center to India. They thought, what KPIs will we give those people in India that answer the calls? And they said, okay, we're going to measure their productivity. We're going to measure how long they take to resolve a customer's problem. And they gave them, I think, 3 minutes.
Yep.
And so that sounded like a good idea at the time.
And we all know what it felt like on the other end, though, didn't we? Don't we all have experienced that, whether it was Telstra or someone else?
So what happened was that if the customer's complaint couldn't be resolved within 3 minutes, the person in India would just hang up because they didn't want to fall into that negative area of extending the call beyond 3 minutes. And the customer who'd been waiting probably in a queue for a while to get on the phone had to start from scratch again with somebody else. So it totally had the opposite effect to what was intended.
And I can personally say I've experienced that frustration on a number of times. And really, the biggest time that I experienced it was around about 2015 when we kicked this business off. I'm moving from a large corporate. Monday morning comes up. I needed to get something done with my phone. I thought, okay, hang on, Terry. You are the help desk now. There's no one else to call. So I went through that exact same experience, I think, over a 3 or 4 hour period on that first Monday morning when we started this business in frustrations with Telstra and a call center. That was that exact example. When it got too hard, they would just hang up. I was ripping my hair. After 3 hours of this, it was like I ended up finding an Australian technician, a guy in Melbourne I was in at the time, and said, please, can you help me? This is the problem I've got. Got it sorted out locally. But literally, it was, I've experienced it. Pull your hair out. I'm surprised I'm not balder than I am. So,
yeah, so that was just an example of how KPIs can create unintended consequences for the customer.
Absolutely. Look, many organisations struggle with that integration of sales and marketing, and we see it all the time. Often we'll have marketing as our first touch because they own the website, but we act as an extension to the sales team, and with that fluid and need a connection between the two. And it's surprising sometimes the level of, I won't say necessarily conflict, but separation between the two, a reluctance for marketing to engage sales, or vice versa. If we've come into sales as the first touch point, a reluctance to engage marketing. Yeah. What role does leadership play in fostering a truly collaborative environment?
They're the key, frankly. I've seen many organizations, large, small, and multinational, where the teams themselves try to align themselves better and collaborate a bit better. But unless there's an impetus from the top down, it's not going to last. What I've seen work is where individual marketers have aligned themselves with individual sales reps on a one-on-one personal level. Yep. And that's worked really well, but it's only worked for those people that went to that effort. Whenever the two respective parties hide in their own silos, nothing will bring them together unless there's an impetus from the top. The other thing is that, speaking about impetus from the top, what I talk about in the book is that a lot of organizations try to align sales and marketing the wrong way around. They go technology, process, people in that sequence, because they hear that all they have to do is buy an app and pay for a license, and a miracle will occur. But as we discussed earlier, it's actually a people issue that they're not working together. So I say it's people first, process second, and then technology to support the above.
Absolutely.
And that's a matter for leadership to address, and it's not something that somebody can do from bottom up.
Every change management piece I've ever been involved in that I've seen, and those that I've seen fail and those that have been successful, have all been, the root cause has been the people for both the successes and the failures. And in fact, it's where those managers have overlooked the people aspect that the biggest failures have been. I watched one implementation back in about 2009 of SAP into a state business that overall was, you're talking multi-million dollar, $9 million implementation, and then total impact of the first month of $19 million, which was wound back after the first 30 days because they hadn't managed that piece up the front, the human piece, in terms of the change management, appropriate training, adoption, etc., etc. It was a case of changing the tech and expecting everybody's just going to walk the line. It just doesn't work like that. Look, human beings are too individual.
I've seen the same thing with an ERP implementation at one of the very large multinationals that I've worked at, where the business leader got up in front of, it was a town hall meeting, so with all the staff there, and he said, and I remember this exactly what he said. He said, "We've planned everything to the nth degree, nothing can go wrong."
Famous last words.
Famous last words, exactly. And the thing blew out to 3 times the time and twice the cost, or the other way around, I forget now. And then in the end, there was a lot of finger pointing between the technology provider, the integrator, and the project manager, and it was just a bun fight. And the warehouse had to run on paper for a year because the ERP system just didn't work. The message here, everybody, is sort out your people first, then define your processes, and processes, by the way, that the people actually agree to, not that they're forced into. Yep. And then support those processes with technology.
Yep. And look, one of my bosses used to say, half tongue in cheek, if you can't change the people, I think there's got to be an understanding or an acceptance that not when there's a wholesale change in an organisation, not everyone will adopt it. Not everyone will come along for that ride. And that means that there will be some people potentially changing in the business. It's an unfortunate fact, but it's part of that change management process. And if you don't deal with that, that can cause more damage than not.
I was just about to say that I've seen in many organizations where the change management is you will bloody do this. And that then causes active or a passive resistance. And it takes a lot longer to then implement the change than if you just brought the people on board in the first place.
There's a little quadrant of assessing the team members that are going to be involved in this change management process, and the organisation that have to change, the people in the organisation. And one of those boxes is champions, and the other ones is terrorists. And you better believe it, terrorists exist in organisations that will go out of their way to derail. How do you think these things get derailed? They don't just go off the rails because people are blasé with it or they don't care one way or the other. It's the terrorists that will take it off the rails.
Yeah, and some of those terrorists sit in very senior positions, close to retirement, that don't want to rock the boat before they shuffle off.
Absolutely. You talked earlier about automating outbound and this AI to take over entire functions. It is a huge part of modern sales. Many companies do get it wrong. What do you think is the right way to balance automation and personalisation to keep outreach effective?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If somebody sends you an AI-generated email, cold, first-time contact, right? Can you sniff that it's actually AI?
At this stage, I would say I can for 95%. I've seen 5% that are very good, but 95% I can, yep.
Okay, so I think that people use AI, and sorry if this is not polite, but what people use AI in a very lazy fashion. They just rely that AI will do the right thing. I just type something into ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and whatever comes out, I'll just use because AI knows best.
Yep, I agree.
But there is a certain tone to AI, unless you tweak it and you do all the things that you talked about to get that to that 5%, that where people know this is not generated by a human being. For example, I get on LinkedIn, publish articles and post posts, and there's always this handful of people that respond right away with some comment, and the comment sounds so banal that I just know it's not a person. I still reply because it helps with the SEO on LinkedIn, but in the end, we'll end up with a world where AI will talk to AI and no human will be involved.
It's so funny.
To answer your question, it's far better if you include a human element in AI and not just rely on it totally to do it.
It's funny. I've in a couple of times a week. I like being involved in LinkedIn. I like commenting on posts, and there's at least a couple of times a week where someone will come back to me and this sounds like AI, and I'm like, really? You go, I'll have to change my normal tone. But I think that there is a place for AI in terms of lightening the workload, not necessarily that final piece of interaction. And we get asked all the time, how have you got a business? Live chat agents, you can just get an AI bot to do it these days. And valid question, go and do that if that's what you want to have your high value prospects engaging with as a first touch to your organisation, sure. But I think that and we wouldn't do that from our perspective, not at this point in time. We've been working with AI for probably 18 months or 2 years now, and we're still not at the stage with any of it we'd let it loose on any of our clients, and we certainly would never do it without a joint agreement.
Yeah.
But there's places where we use it in the back end for our business. But I think from a sales perspective, there's ways it can be leveraged to help with reduced effort in terms of things like building lists of prospects to reach out to, identifying specific attributes or points of conversation. You mentioned before about building rapport, things that might be relevant, whether it's a personal or a business aspect, whether it's a particular post that they've done somewhere, a comment they've made on a post somewhere where their business has been mentioned in the news, etc., etc. The best practice is to do deep enough research on your prospect that you have a good enough understanding that you can have a valid conversation as though you know them. That takes an extraordinary amount of time. I've seen SDRs that spend so much time. It takes longer to do the research than it does to do the outreach. I think AI helps a lot as far as that, and there's some good tools. There's some very complicated tools, which the poor SDR, I think, is moving more into. You've got to be a RevOps expert to be able to use some of these tools. But I think AI is there to help more from a research and preparation and suggestion rather than actually executing the output. As soon as you get somebody that sees that they believe it's not a human that's interacting with them, I think it has much more of a negative impact than a positive one.
Okay, it depends. I think people actually accept speaking to a bot if it's clear that it's a bot. As soon as the bot pretends to be a human being, I think that all trust goes out the window, and we talked about trust earlier, right?
Yes.
The thing that, so I'd just like to come back to a couple of things you mentioned there. One is that, yes, AI will be very good at helping with automating the repeatable processes.
Yes.
It'll be very good, and it'll get better in finding information that is not easily found by a human being and collating that and sorting it and making it digestible. It will also get better, I think, at interacting with human beings to the point, I think, down the track where you can't distinguish whether you're talking to a real human being or whether you're talking to a bot. But that takes nothing away from the human not wanting to be tricked.
Yes.
We don't want to be duped. We don't want to be held like some sort of idiot that we don't know that we're talking to a bot. So I think it's okay to say, I am a bot and I'm trying to help you to do the right thing. For example, on my next website, I will have a bot that you can interact with, and you can ask questions that you might not feel comfortable asking me because you don't want to look silly or you don't want to look that you don't know what you're talking about. And the bot can actually help you to prepare for a real call with me, and it'll be a better conversation. So it's actually meant to help you to decide, do you want to talk to me, yes or no? What do you want to talk about? Prepare yourself for that conversation and not feel silly asking that you might be asking dumb questions. So make you feel comfortable to talk with me, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We have done some research now in the last 12 months where we've gone through with a number of our clients and tested the impact of the live chat that we had, the way we set it up with a flat bar and say that there's a person in there, that made it obvious that they're actually talking to a human being, versus the bubble shape itself where it's just a small round circle, versus the one that's obviously an AI where it's got a bot in there. And we found that chatbot, which is the bubble, not an AI robot type thing, but a chatbot where it's just the bubble itself, and it's not certain whether it's a person or a chatbot in behind it, there's a 30% reduction in engagement with the live chat. Right. And where you put a robot in there to obviously indicate that it's AI or a little brain signal that it's AI, we're finding that there's 50% reduction in engagement across our client base. And look, I've got to caveat that by saying they're reasonable deal sizes. We're not dealing with companies that are selling $20 T-shirts in an e-commerce store. We're talking about probably minimum of 15K USD deal sizes. And so starting at that, most, and I would say the average, are probably...
They want to talk to a human being, yeah.
They're up around the $90,000 lifetime value of those clients potentially with the deals. And it's very strong that they do want to talk to a person, or it's probably stronger that they don't want to chat with AI or a bot. And I think that comes from bad experience in the whole history of live chat. Live chat, great with people in there, very hard to manage. Okay, somebody come up with the idea, let's shove a chatbot in there. Chatbot's good, this will be the dream outcome. We'll do all the work, they'll do all the work, and we'll just get the leads. The problem with that is they're very difficult to get right and have a good experience with a chatbot. So it's just created this bad feel for chatbots in particular. AI is coming out now, and I think AI is polarizing people. They either do want it or they don't want it, and trust it or they don't trust it.
I was just going to comment on that, and I think it's also a generational thing. I think people more like our age would prefer to talk to a human being and ask them questions and get a bit of to and fro going on. Whereas I can see it in my own kids that they don't actually like talking on the phone, they don't like talking to a human being, that they are not very good at small talk, they've lost that social interaction skill.
Yep.
So they actually probably would prefer to talk to a bot because who cares, right?
It's not so much it's a bot, it's messaging. It's messaging. If you have a look today at the generation that's coming through now, they live in this messaging world, whether it's Messenger, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever it is, it's all messaging, text messaging. And I think the point that I would bring from it doesn't matter whether in that moment there's a person on the other side, an AI on the other side, or a chatbot on the other side, as long as it's giving a relevant and two-way messaging conversation, that'll deliver outcomes. Where you get into strife is where the AI is not giving the right answer, or the chatbots put them up against the brick wall and asking for email contact and all those sort of things. It's much more in the setup and the constraints or guardrails you're putting around that tool or that technology that you're using. But I'm with you. If you think about what happens with the generations coming through, they are much less to get on a Zoom call. They're much less likely to hand their email address over and be annoyed with an inbox. They want answers now and chat away. And I think any business that's looking at using their website for, or does use their website for lead generation, has to come from it from that perspective of, as the younger generations come through, they're more and more inclined to do their work and research with their thumbs as opposed to anything else. And particularly, you talked earlier about the 2/3 of the buyer's journey's done before they even get in contact. Where do you think they do that? They do that in their peer networks, their groups, their communities, but they also do it on your website. And
Absolutely.
so if there's someone there that they can message with on the website in an anonymous and safe fashion, then you are hands down going to be converting a lot more than what your competitors do. Simply.
Yeah, and analysts like Gartner have been saying for a long time that the trend is towards buying without speaking to a salesperson.
Correct.
Service.
Correct.
And so there's apparently a trend out there where even large purchases, large value purchases, high value purchases are going to be made as an e-commerce transaction.
I'm involved in a Slack group, PLG, product-led growth. Product-led growth is how they phrase it. You can just go and sign up without even having any involvement with a sales process. And companies love it because they don't have to pay for a sales team, supposedly. And the organisations love it because they can do their research and just get on board. There's a whole lot of infrastructure you need to do in the middle then to make sure that their onboarding process and their customer support, et cetera, is all there. And in terms of everything that happens before that person signs up effectively has to complete the sales process for you. And so it's not like a lazy B2B website that says, hey, this is what we can do for you, chat with one of our team. It's like, he will be answering every question that you've got and dealing with all of your objections and get you to a point where you're happy enough to actually sign up and put the credit card out. We've done exactly that. I'm running a soft launch this week. It'll be a couple of weeks ago when this comes out. I might even put an addendum in to see how the results were. That'll be interesting to see. But doing a soft launch this week instead of a sales process to actually offer that as virtually a SaaS sign-up.
Yeah.
It's super lightweight, light touch. We've taken everything we do from an enterprise customer and offering it for smaller customers just to go through and do a sign-up process without touching it all. So it'll be interesting. We've had some sign-ups already and it's working quite well. So we'll see whether it's worth a broader launch beyond this little 2-week campaign we're running. But I think you're right.
I've mentioned my next website, which is in production, and that'll have a self-service sign-up function as well.
Yep.
So I think gone are the days when there's no price on your website and you've got to actually contact somebody and speak to somebody before they even tell you how much it is, how many zeros.
Yep.
Is it $10 or $10,000? I think those days are gone. It's just too big a hurdle for people to jump through that. Just say, look, if you're not ready to tell me how much it is, I'm not going to talk to you.
Yeah, I agree. And the challenge often is that if you haven't got your own pricing strategy sorted out yet, that you need to assess every single individual client that comes through, then your business probably isn't really that scalable just yet. Or maybe you're playing in a very small pool, small pond, and it is very one-on-one. If you're in the super enterprise space, I get that.
Yeah, very niche. Yeah.
Yeah, very niche. But anything that you're looking at from a potential scalable perspective, I think you need to have that as an offer. I think both, so that those clients who want to engage and have further conversations, you can, but also give them the opportunity to get in. So we've done something that we've never done before, and that is offer a free trial. There's a cost associated with what we do. It's not SaaS, it's people in the back end. So every time we touch something, there's a cost associated with it. And my concern in the past has been you offer a free trial, you get too many free trials, sign-ups, and then you do all the work and don't get the benefit in the longer run, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just the usual founder's fear, I think, or the manager's fear of...
I think that's just a matter of mitigating your risk in the sense of not being taken advantage of, in the sense that you need to really pre-qualify those opportunities and only offer that free service to somebody who just wants to put their toe in the water before they buy. And this is why I don't get SaaS companies offering a demo first.
Yep.
So I'm having a conversation with a hopefully future client on Friday, where the owner is hell-bent on doing a demo first before anything else, so that the customer knows what it is, what they're getting, right? But as we talked right at the beginning of our conversation today, that they're not buying a technology, they're buying an outcome. And so they want to know, what problems does it solve for me? How does it work? How quickly? Is there ROI? And then, of course, all the personal, emotional aspects of, will it make me look good? Will it help me mitigate my risks and all that sort of thing? I actually advocate that you should do the demo last. Once you've agreed on what the client or the prospect actually wants to achieve, and then you can show them in the demo how your tech addresses that issue, right?
Yep.
And so I think that my hopefully soon client will currently putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think so. That's almost that process of, if you haven't done proper discovery to understand the real problems that they're trying to solve, it's like the bog standard discovery that just goes through all of the features. The prospect that you're showing it to will be asleep once they've seen the one that's relevant to them, and then you'll lose them. And then it's how you make them feel. Well, you don't make them feel interested or interested in or important, because you're just rattling everything off instead of just focusing on the things that are important to them.
Actually, that reminds me, it's actually a mindset of the owner, because it's their baby, right? Like you got chat metrics, and you developed the product, you've developed the business, and it's your little baby, and you're so fascinated that the little baby exists and how beautiful the baby is. You want to talk about the baby. But your buyer don't want to talk about the baby. They want to talk about what's in it for me, right? And so it's actually a hard thing for a business owner to disassociate themselves from it and look at it from the buyer's perspective first.
It is, absolutely it is. We've recently redone our website and changed. We've reduced a lot of the copy that was in there. I'd probably gone over the top too much, but our aim there is very much to be talking about solutions and outcomes and problems that we solve, as opposed to the actual way we go about doing it. Sure, we mention the way we do it. We have to do that because there's got to be some clarity and understanding. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. And we don't get a lot of traffic anyway. Our focus has been on that cold outbound growth, so we do get some traffic from that. As we start to shift to more of a marketing effort ourselves, we'll see how that traffic goes. It's increasing nicely over the last couple of months, so
good to hear.
That works. Yeah,
the Aussie innovation making it big.
We'll see. Bigger, no, maybe not big yet, but bigger than where we were yesterday.
Bigger,
yeah.
It's the right direction. That's good.
Peter, look, there's, for the sales leaders that are listening now, and our audience is a mix of marketing and sales, so I'm sure there's been some interesting eyebrows raised so far from our conversation. For the sales leader that's listening right now, if they could take only one action this week to improve their sales process, what would you recommend?
I would say look at your marketing material, your website, your collateral. Look at the first word in each paragraph. And if it says we or company name, think about how that resonates with your audience.
That's for the marketers probably. They own the website.
I think it's for the salespeople as well, because they should go to the marketers and say, can you switch this around and make it more buyer-focused rather than product-focused?
Right, yep.
And in large organizations, you've got product managers who think that everybody's fascinated with the product and they don't understand that why the buyers are not. That's a bit by the by. But,
that's right.
But I would... Okay, so if you want something that's totally dependent on the salespeople only, I would say whenever you do your first outreach, think how you show up. Do you show up as somebody who just wants to make a quick sale, or do you show up as somebody who wants to help the buyer make the right decision and mitigate their risks and not get in trouble and look good in the process? Yeah? Yep. And if you change your mindset from I must sell to I will help, a lot of good things happen.
Very good advice. And that's the mindset. It's the mindset that you enter into those calls with. And so then my last question is, and I'll ask you if there's anything that I haven't asked you yet, but my last question, what's the one piece of outdated sales advice that needs to die and what should replace it?
That it's all a numbers game.
Yeah. Very good.
So as we talked about very early in the piece, we need now to look at quality versus quantity. No more spray and pray. No more show up and throw up.
Yep.
Make it about the buyer and how you help them to come out better than before they met you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Excellent. Now, is there anything that I should have asked that I haven't asked you yet?
Yes, how can people get in touch with me?
Of course, we'll have all of that covered on there. We'll have all the relevant links and everything on there. What's your preference in terms of people getting in touch with you?
I'm everywhere, so they can get to me on LinkedIn, they can reach out to me on email, there's any sort of the social media posts. You might actually want to have a look at my YouTube channel. I'm posting a number of life lessons for business owners and sales leaders. These are sort of lessons that I've learned more or less the hard way myself, and I'm passing on to help sales leaders and business owners to get on, to improve their business and not having to repeat the mistakes that I made in the past. So there's currently 13 or 14 life lessons there, and I'm recording more every week, and this is on my YouTube channel, so Peter Advisory. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll make sure that your LinkedIn, website and YouTube channel links are at the bottom of the podcast and the other communications that we do about it.
There's one other thing, and that is, speaking of AI, I've been experimenting with AI, and I've actually cloned myself in AI. So there's a bot that was trained on 1 million of my words from my 2 books and from 220 odd articles and podcast interviews like this one, the YouTube, etc. So it's totally trained on my stuff, on my selling philosophy and how I would do it, so that people can go and ask the bot questions to find out what's buyer-focused selling all about, does it work for my business, what difference will it make, and how should I go about it. They don't have to feel that they're being sold to because the bot won't sell to them, and they can knock themselves out and ask all the seemingly silly questions before they speak to me. And that's on the website under Ask Peter.
Well, a very good look at there's another example of where AI can help with the sales process, that help potentially qualify in or qualify out prospects for you, but also help them prepare better for that initial conversation as well.
Exactly right. It's my alter ego or my digital twin or whatever you want to call it. But it's not prone to hallucinations because it's purely trained on my 1 million odd words.
Yeah, very good, very good. Peter, look, it's been an absolute pleasure today. The insights that you've shared, like I said, I'm pretty sure that there's a few of the audience here, both on the sales and marketing side, raising eyebrows and making copious notes if they're not using their AI note taker to do that. So thank you very much for coming on the chat today, and wish you all the best and look forward to catching up again.
Thank you, Terry. And by the way, I'm happy to take offline questions from people listening to your podcast.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Peter.
Thanks again for having me.
Bye.